Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica DiRuzza from Trust Psyche. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, professional astrologer, and teacher. I'm also the founder of Trust Psyche School of Astrology and beloved teacher of all of my students all around the world. Beloved are my students to me. And today I want to talk about Saturn transits. And part of why I come on here and do these live streams is to help me um, channel, distill, and focus my thoughts that are in a typical Mercury Neptune fashion, which I have constantly swirling in the ethers. And it's a way for me to hone and bring in and articulate what it is that is most dear to me and um, something that I can only seemingly extract by coming into a forum like this. So I thank you for being here with me today. So I want to just center for a second because Saturn really likes it when we're grounded and we're centered and we're present. Saturn really likes it when we're in our bodies and we're of the earth. As I've said many times before, Saturn is the manifest realm. It is the realm of the physical world, of the incarnate reality of space and time, where we have physical bodies. For me, there is a profound reason why Saturn is the realm in which the cosmic stage has been set for the rest of the archetypal pantheon or the planetary bodies to express themselves in physical form, and in our case, in human form here on Earth. That it seems to me that the divine chose the archetype of Saturn in order for us to have an experience of consciousness and to therefore be able to have our individual embodied experiences that allow us to become co-creators and co-participators with all of life, whether that's with other people, the world, creativity, love, hate, anger, whatever it is that we're coming into relation to, we are co-creators, always one end of that said relationship. And I think that there is a reason why Saturn is the gatekeeper. Saturn is the threshold through which we must pass through in order to become human, in order to enter into this world, in order to have governance of the psyche so that we can have an experience of not only being an individual, but have an experience of a certain amount of agency in participating within the world. Saturn, as we all know, relates to karma, relates to the past, relates to tradition. It's the consequences of past actions and decisions. And it also relates to the process of aging, of dying, and of death. That, of course, is our physical death of our body, but it's also any experiences that we have in life that are metaphoric deaths and endings. Places in life where we come up against limitation, where we come up against boundaries, where we come up against our own limitations and therefore have to form boundaries in order to protect ourselves from hitting our limitations. When we are pressed up against our limitations as human beings, what tends to happen is we become really overwhelmed and our nervous system becomes dysregulated and we're not as centered and as focused and as present because we're not honoring whatever our own personal limitations may be. And so the reason why we set boundaries in relationships and in our life is in order to protect us from hitting up against those limitations so that we don't go into extreme states of consciousness that can lead to a dysregulated nervous system, to fatigue, overwhelm, anger, rage, whatever your expression is that you have whenever you end up crossing your own boundaries and coming up against your own limitations. Now, Saturn is also the boundary of things as far as not just the physical boundaries of our body, our skin, and, our bones, but it's also our growing edge, when we talk about places that we're growing into, things that we're learning, lessons that we're going through. Saturn is all about teaching us through lessons, through mistakes and trial and error, through failure. Um, when we are experiencing pain, when we're experiencing a sense of inadequacy, this is all Saturn's realm. And then the lessons and the teachings that we get from being in pain or agony, or from feeling a sense of defeat. This is what Saturn ushers into our life. And then on the other side of that, by being with the pain or the mistake, the regret or the resentment, which happens when we cross our own boundaries. We resent the other person, we blame the other person, or we resent or blame ourselves because we haven't stayed in our own alignment and integrity, which is what Saturn is in its very kind of high and clear expression, is integrity, moral integrity, ethical integrity. And what is integrity? It means to be whole, it means to be aligned, and it means to be true to our own selves, to our own principles and our own values, our own ethics, our own morals. So when we're in alignment with ourselves, Saturn can come through as grounded clarity, the ability to manifest, the ability to create, to bring things into creation, into the physical realm, to make them real, to incarnate them. But it's also the wisdom. It's the wisdom through life experience. It's the wisdom through the trials and the errors and the suffering and the pain that we all experience as being human beings who have foibles, who are ineffable. We are mortals. And Saturn is the stamp of being immortal. It's the stamp on our eternal soul that says, no, when you choose to become human, the rules, the Saturn rules that you play by is that you're born, you live, and you die. And there's no escaping that process. And then the telos, or the unfolding of our life from the beginning of our birth chart through all the transits that we go through until the moment of our death as we pass through into back into the other realm, is also Saturn. It's our fate, it's our dharma. It has a quality of, our karma that we came into this world with. So both dealing with things of the past from our own personal souls, many incarnations, from our ancestors, from the lineages that we're a part of, both in our bloodlines, but also in different spiritual traditions or scholarly traditions, or if you're a chef, the lineage of your teachers, or if you're a painter, the lineage of all of your teachers, or of the method of painting that you do. Like all of the lineages that we're a part of, going backwards and going forward, are all a part of Saturn's domain. And so we realize that we are the mediatrix, or the midpoint through which incarnation happens as the past becomes present, as expressed through us, and as the future is made through our participation in the way that we deal with the context of our life and the way that we bring in the divine creative force through whatever it is that we're doing and creating and focusing our energy on. And so Saturn says, whatever we focus and our energy on, whatever we're devoted to, committed to, wherever we show discipline through routine and rigor, and repetition, uh, that investment is that in which we are going to manifest. So when people talk about timelines and getting on a certain timeline, where there's a crossroads in life, a choice, a really important choice of whether to go this direction or this direction, that crossroads is Saturn. That choice is Saturn, but also that timeline is Saturn. Saturn is the timeline. It is time and it is space. And it's the responsibility that we each have as individuals from the choices that we make that then, is one very strong factor in determining, and that's also Saturn, determination of what timeline we're on. So that which we focus our energy into is that which we make real, and that which becomes the timeline, our reality of life. So Saturn is consensus reality, it's the reality that we live in, and it's also the choices that we make and the consequences from those choices that we make that then shape, give form, to what Saturn is. So part of what I want to share today about Saturn transits after saying all of that, and for those of you who aren't familiar, I wrote an article called Revisioning Saturn, which brings a feminine lens into understanding the Saturn archetype, which you can read up on my website at trustpsyche.com under Learn More. And what I want to say about Saturn transits is that Saturn is a planet that takes approximately 29 and a half years to go around the solar system, therefore the chart. And it also is has a quadrature alignments of every 7 years. So every 7 years, we go through a Saturn transit to every planet in our birth chart. So Saturn to Saturn, Saturn to Venus, Saturn to Mercury, Saturn to Mars, Saturn to Jupiter, all of the planets, every 7 years, depending on where the angles were in your chart when you were born, Saturn forms a relationship to that. The conjunction, the square, the opposition, the square, the conjunction. And this is really important to the development of the psyche and the unfolding of psyche through time in regards to our relationship with Saturn, which is this. Saturn transits require us to mature. And no matter how mature we've become, no matter how much we've dealt with any particular issue in our life, Saturn requires us to make a sacrifice or many sacrifices in order to mature, in order to become more wise, and in order to deal with the consequences of our past actions and decisions. Consequences with sequence is both positive and negative. The word consequence, though has a negative connotation, actually is value judgment free. So the consequences from the past can have both positive and negative vectors. And when, let's say, we go through Saturn on the sun as a transit, we're going to be inevitably dealing with the themes of every Saturn to the sun transit that we've ever been through before in our life. Most particularly the last angle that happened 7 years ago. So what we do is we go back in time, which is a very Saturn thing, to go back in time, to reflect, to take the time to go inward and to sit in contemplation and look at thematically, symbolically, what was happening in our life 7 years ago, with particularly in this case solar themes, our identity, our sense of self, our ego, men, male, masculine figures in our life, with our father, with our creative life force, with our creative self-expression. And when we look at what was going on there, it keys us in to what are the Saturnian archetypal themes and the karmic issues that we're needing to deal with in this present moment as Saturn aspects the sun. What's so important to remember with Saturn transits is that not only is it about maturation, but it's also about authority and our relationship to authority. And no matter how much work we've done in relationship to authority, let's say we've worked a lot on the personal father or the archetypal father or the patriarchal father or the patriarchal God or the patriarchal institutions of the contemporary period that we live in historically, inevitably and necessarily, we're going to have to deal with those themes again, yet in a new instantiation, in a new form, in a new way, because hopefully we've evolved, we've learned from last time, we've worked on themes from last time. But it is inescapable that we are going to have to deal with themes of authority in our life and our relationship to our own personal authority, how we do not have that in different areas of our life, with work, with our partners, with our family, with the church, with whatever institution or organizations that you participate in. You're going to have to deal with themes of authority. Just like we're going to have to deal with themes of loss. All Saturn transits bring loss. All Saturn transits represent a dying away of whatever it's touching. So Saturn-Venus transits, there will always necessarily be a loss of friendship, relationships, friendships, will come to an end, whether that's the entire relationship or aspects of relationship. Your social contracts and your romantic contracts will necessarily need to be renegotiated. What are the consensual agreements that we're making about what is our friendship? Is the foundation of our friendship strong? Is it secure? Is it healthy? What aspects of it are out of alignment because we've changed and they no longer work? Do we still want to be friends? Asking these really hard questions always come with Saturn transits, and with Saturn Venus transits, the area of life where the loss and the maturation and needing to take authority and therefore responsibility will be within relationship. It also will be within your creative process. It'll be within your relationship to the feminine. It'll be in relationship to how you express beauty and love in your life. It'll also be in relationship to what you value and how you value what you love and find beautiful and attractive. These things will necessarily, aspects of them come to an end. There will be loss. When we go through Saturn transits, there is a sacrifice, and sacrifice means to make sacred. No matter how much we've evolved, no matter how well we've learned the lessons of our life, no matter how far we've gone in psychedelic spaces, or how long we've been in therapy, or how deep we've gone into any process, any tool, any workshop, it is inescapable and necessary that Saturn shows up in the ways that are true to Saturn. And the reason that that happens is it's a necessary part of the evolutionary process. It's the necessary stage of evolution that we come up against our own limitations, that we are forced to purify and reckon with whatever Saturn is touching in our birth chart. That it's a time period where we must be honest as we can with ourselves, and take inventory, take stock, and then go through the arduous and painful and hard process of letting go, and of taking care of old business and addressing issues that need to be addressed in order to properly move forward in life. Because as much as Saturn is negation and the ending of things, it's also the container and the vessel and the new structure that comes in, that holds the next vision, that holds the next creative process, that holds the next stage or epoch of your life. But without doing that work of the hard work of the letting go and the endings, the clearing out, we can't make the necessary room for what's to come next. And I think that that's a really difficult part of being human, is the constant and relentless process where Saturn is always aspecting some part of our chart, and therefore we were always going through some form of ending and of loss and of letting go and of maturation and of becoming ultimately. Saturn is about becoming, and it's the process of becoming. And we know that becoming is difficult, and that it takes time, and that Saturn gives its gifts with time. And that the more we invest our time and energy, the more that we're devoted to whatever it is, the more we make that thing real. Whether that's a toxic relationship or a healthy relationship, right? Like whatever we focus on, that is what we're going to bring more into reality. That's what Saturn shows us. That's what Saturn teaches us. So Saturn transits, in their necessitation of sacrifice, is something that I think ultimately humbles us, hopefully, as human beings, right? Because Saturn shows us our imperfections. It brings with it, again, that sense of failure and defeat, of contraction. And also, Saturn transits are, wherever it's aspecting the chart, we tend to go through a period of feeling separate. So if Saturn is aspecting your moon in hard transit, dynamic transit, then there's necessarily some form of separation with family or a family member. There's some form of either physical distance or emotional distance that comes up either with a parent or a sibling or a child. Albeit it might be temporary, there is some type of separation and space that inevitably comes with Saturn moon transits. Um, sometimes people will say to me, I've already worked through all my mom issues, or I've already worked through all my dad issues. Um, when Saturn moon comes along by transit, there is no person who doesn't experience some kind of process of dealing with the mother and father again. Now, maybe that's not with the personal mother and father, or maybe that's not with the living personal mother and father, but the echoes of the patterns and the dynamics and the relationship that have been there, that permeate all of your relations and all of your life, will have to be addressed in some form or another. So, my point is that no matter how much work we've done, um, there is no escaping any of our transits. And I think that's something that's really difficult to accept about being human, especially the quality of human life, where life is very long. Um, and inevitably, because Saturn represents time and the aging process, as we get older, our experience of Saturn changes, right? So every time we go through a Saturn transit, we're more deeply initiated into Saturn. Now, how we respond to that hugely defines our character. So, one quality of the aging process with Saturn, when we experience defeat or inadequacy or failure or loss, we could become contracted and closed and calcified, right? We could become the archetype of the Scrooge. We could become the archetype of the lone cowboy. We could become the archetype um, of the, the orphan, the lost child, the outsider, right? Or we can be humbled and refined by that process and sculpted and accept that defeat and loss and failure and heartbreak is a part of the human condition, be with it, feel it, grieve it, take our time to have it work through us, and then continue to make the choice to have an open heart and to be kind and compassionate and to take the high road. And those two different paths, those two different timelines, those two different experiences of life and reality are very much determined by how we respond to Saturn transits. Are they going to shut us down and close us off and make us quit? Or are they going to humble us and strengthen us and make us more self and other compassionate and kind? Are we going to have greater self love through the Saturn transit at the end of it? Or are we going to be judgmental and critical, which is the shadow side of Saturn, about ourselves and about other people? Um, and I'm going to end with this, which is, as many of you know, I gave birth last fall, and it was there were aspects of the birth that were very challenging, as is true with almost every birth. And whether that's a physical birth of a baby or a birth of anything in your life, a project. And it was really helpful the other day. My husband Travis reframed one aspect of what happened in labor and delivery for me, which was really healing. And I think this is about taking a feminine lens to Saturn transits, which depathologizes everything that we go through in life, including our hardships, our challenges, and the things that we might experience as mistakes or failure, where we can be really self critical and self judgmental and not in a place of self love and compassion. And that is um, the the physical hardship that I went through in labor was a choice that I made, in, I believe now, a sacrifice that I made in order to protect my daughter, in order to protect my child from what was happening in the room. That I bared down and created a boundary, created the boundary of a sacred vessel and container to protect what was going on inside. And this is the beauty of Saturn. This is the beauty of the container. This is the beauty of the boundaries, is that it protects what's going on inside of it. And when we choose to protect something, we're saying, we value this and we love this, and this means so much to us that I'm willing to do what it takes to protect, in this case, my daughter, this new life. And whatever sacrifice or pain that I'm going through ends up becoming worth it and therefore meaningful because of choosing to go through something that was harder on me so it could be less hard on Luce. Protecting what we love, I believe, is one of the greatest gestures that we can make to Saturn, that aspect of the universe that is represented in the archetype of Saturn. When we choose to protect what we love, we are claiming our devotion to that aspect of life. And I believe that the universe responds in kind by saying back, I see how much you love this, and I see that you're willing to protect, and I see that you are willing to invest. Therefore, I am going to come back and bless you in that area of your life with love, with gifts, with love. And the reward for the sacrifice becomes that which we choose to protect in our life becomes stronger. The bond becomes stronger. The connection becomes stronger. And I believe the main reason we're here as human beings is for connection and love. So, boundaries and honoring our limitations and honoring our needs and protecting that which we love, whether that's a person or a relationship or our art practice or our music or the creation of clay. We protect it by saying no to other things. And Saturn is the principle of saying no to other things in order to say yes to what matters most to us. And something that I think is very paradoxical and perhaps different about being human and being in this realm of earth is that it necessitates us to say no to the potential of all things in order to say yes to that which we most want to manifest, incarnate, and make real. And that, I believe, is the definition of sacrifice, and I believe is part of what is so difficult and yet beautiful about being human. So I'm going to end here for today. I look forward to being on the next live stream with you here on the Trust Psyche YouTube channel. I would love for you to subscribe, leave a comment below, share your thoughts and visions on Saturn transits, and join the community. Thank you so much for being here with me today and giving me the space and the time and your attention in order to help bring through what it is that's wanting to move through all of us today. Thank you so much.